Good day, everyone. My name's Michael John Byers, and I'm going to be going over today's presentation. We have a special presentation based on all the things that are going on right now in the federal government. You have the Deferred Resignation Program, the DRP. Just announced a couple days ago, you've got the Vera, and these things are working interchangeably and separately. So there's a lot of information to dive into. Our goal today is to dive into that information. Obviously, this is a fast moving and fast changing situation. And so as we go through this, understand that we believe all this information to be correct as of today, but gosh, tomorrow's a different story, okay? So again, my name's Michael John Byers. I've been doing presentations for the federal government all over the country for the last 27 years, from Washington, D.C., for Defense Logistics Agency to the Department of Navy in Pearl Harbor and all states in between. We've been helping federal employees understand their retirement benefits, maximize their retirement benefits, and get the most out of them. Now, as we go through, understand this. OPM is trying to get a bunch of information out there. At the same time, we're trying to get that information condensed and where it makes easy to understand processes and how that works and how that'll affect you individually. So as we go through today, I'm going to do a brief introduction of who we are, what we do, so you at least know who you're getting information from today. And then we're going to dive right into the information, the numbers, and we're going to go through the whole process. Not just do you take the DRP or do you take the Vera, boom. We're going to dive into that information, but we're also going to dive into the process of what does it look like if you take the DRP or Vera. And so that's our goal as we go through today. Again, my name's Michael John Byers. My partner and I, we've worked together for over 31 years together in some form. We live 2 streets down from each other. We've been best friends for the last 31 years. And as we go through this, we've hosted a radio show for almost 8 years called The Money Talk Show on Fox Talk 950. We were the local financial analyst on Fox 34 News for over 3 years. We still get interviewed by Fox Business, Fox News, CNBC, ABC all the time. We're featured on Bloomberg Magazine as well as Golf Digest. I'm president and founder of Lone Star Registered Investment Advisors and Lone Star Wealth Management. Now, our headquarters is in Lubbock, Texas. That's where I'm speaking to you from today. But we're in all 50 states, do business in all 50 states. So no matter where you're located, we'll be able to help you. And our team specializes in federal employees. Here's some of the news stories we did throughout the years. Again, Mark and I have been featured on national news magazines like Insurance News Net, Bloomberg Weekly, Golf Digest. Him and I were both the featured financial analyst on the documentary Retirement in America, Not Alone. Mark and I have all co-authored 3 books, most recently TSP Millionaire Secrets, Planning a Secure Federal Retirement, as well as our bigger book, Planning a Secure Retirement, the 2nd edition. Now, one of the great things about attending today's webinar is we're going to give you the opportunity to get all 3 of our books. As it relates to the Planning a Secure Federal Retirement, you'll get that in a PDF ebook that you can immediately download when you fill out your evaluation sheet at the end of today's workshop. Now, if you want to click on the evaluation sheet now and go ahead and get it filled out, that's perfectly fine. We find a lot of federal employees do that as they're walking through. You'll also get our TSP Millionaire Secrets book as an ebook immediately downloadable. We will actually mail you a hard copy of our Planning a Secure Federal Retirement. That way you can mark that one up. It'll have a lot of our TSP secrets in it, as well as our chapter on federal benefits. So these are all things that you get just for attending today's webinar. Now, how do we understand the federal system? How long have we been in the federal system? Well, Mark's been around the federal system his entire life. His dad was an Air Force fighter pilot, actually won the Top Gun Award. Yes, that Top Gun Award twice, and retired from the Air National Guard and continued to fly up until he was 81. And so Mark's been around the system his entire life. He's been helping federal employees for the last 27 years. When he's not helping people retire, he's spending time with his grandbabies and his lovely wife, Penny. Now, myself, I've been around the federal system my entire life. My dad was 21 years Army. I spent time in Korea, Okinawa, Japan, 9 years in Germany. Ich sprechen Sie bisschen Deutsch. I still speak a little German. But my first job was actually with the federal government at age 14. Yes, age 14. I had a real cool internship at 14 and 15. I got to be a DJ at an MHFR facility in Frankfurt, Germany. And so I've been around the system my entire life. I actually have a FERS retirement annuity that I will collect at age 62. So understand this. We understand the federal system. We understand federal benefits. And we understand what it takes to serve our country as a federal employee. And so as we walk through this, understand that our goal today is to do the best job we can educating you about those benefits. I have 7 kids and a lovely wife, Sarah. We have a ranch in Childress, Texas that we raise cattle on and enjoy doing that. We also enjoy traveling across the world and across the United States. Most recently, we spent New Year's in Miami on a boat right across from where they shoot the fireworks out New Year's Eve. That was a spectacular event. I highly recommend it. Now, let's dive in. Now, as a federal employee looking at taking a DRP or taking a Vera, you need to understand there's some big questions that you want to be thinking about as we go through this process. And understand this, we want you to retire to something rather than just from work. So as we walk through this, we're going to also be talking about some personal situations. What does retirement look like to you? Are you going to travel, do volunteer work, go into a second career, time with family? What does that look like? So even though we're talking about taking a deferred resignation or taking a Vera, an early voluntary retirement, we want you to have a plan besides just the numbers, okay? Now, part of the reason you may be looking at taking these things is because your lifestyle may be affected by the requirement to go back to work in office 5 days a week and those sorts of things. Maybe you've been on the fence about retirement and now you're like, oh, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that. So as we go through this, please understand that we also are going to be talking about your personal situation. Now, obviously, we can't, through the interweb today, know everyone's personal situation. So you'll want to reach out to us, fill out the evaluation form that's in the chat section so that we know that you want to schedule time with us and we can get that scheduled as quickly as possible. My team are working 12-hour days currently. They're working 9 to 9 to make sure that they have time to visit with all of you as we're diving into getting closer and closer to the deadlines of the DRP and as we're diving into understanding the Vera. So let's dive into it. Now, as a federal employee, you have 5 big questions you need to answer. When should I retire? Should I take this deferred resignation plan, the DRP? Should I take the Vera? Well, to know that, you also need to know what are your survivor benefits? How's that going to affect your family? How do you take income out of your TSP? How does FEGLI work? Do you get to keep your FEHB? Do you make enough money to be able to fully retire? Or are you going to step aside from a government job and go into the private sector as maybe a government contractor or completely different job title? And maybe you don't need as much money because you're getting your FERS pension. So maybe you can go into something that's completely different that you're passionate about. These are all things that are great questions. So let's dive into the numbers. So first things first, we need to understand this. How much do you really need to retire? And I don't mean retire from federal government and go get a second job. I mean be retired, okay? Now, as you start thinking about, do I retire? Am I getting a second career? Am I going into the private sector? Obviously, that's going to affect this, but we need to know what your federal pension looks like. How does that work with TSP? How's that going to combine with your Social Security benefits or your FERS special supplement? How much is enough? If you listen to the experts, you'll be even more confused. Here's just an example of some of what the experts say. You need $1 million. Maybe $1 million isn't enough. $1 million isn't enough anymore. Maybe you don't even need $1 million. Just in these headlines and these articles, you could be completely confused because every single one in here tells a different story. Well, we believe how much you need for retirement is a very personal number to you because you're different than Joe or Mary that's in your office. So what is your real retirement number? What is the number you need to be fully retired, not having to go back to work? Well, we think you break it down to its simplest form, and that's simply this. It's what you take home now. That's your real retirement number. That's the number you're living off of today. That's the number you're paying your credit card bills, you're paying your car payment, your house payment, your rent, putting kids through college. That's the number that you take home today. And I do mean direct deposited take home, not before deductions, okay? We're talking net of FEHB, net of FEGLI, net of TSP, net of taxes. What is that number? And if today, whether you're taking advantage of the VRP or just fully retiring or doing a DRP, VRP combination, whatever that is, if today you could take advantage of those numbers between now and September and be fully retired, would you? I think a lot of you would, at least the ones I've been talking to over the last 4, 5, 6 days. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So very simply this, if you're taking home $1,500 every 2 weeks, that's net direct deposit into your checking account and credit union every 2 weeks. You multiply that number by 26 pay periods and you divide that by 12. That gives you $3,250. That's your real retirement number, isn't it? That's the number you're taking home today. That's the number we want to get back to. Now, as a FERS employee, getting back to that number is going to take a couple different things. It's going to take your FERS pension. It's going to take your Social Security or FERS special supplement. And it's going to take your Social Security later in life at 62 and your TSP. All of those things need to work together. So as we're marching forward, looking at these numbers, we're going to dive into each of them and show you how they combine and work together to get your real retirement number. So let's dive in. First, as you're looking at this retirement, we're going to talk about just regular retirement. And as a FERS employee, you need to know what your MRA is. This is a key number, especially when we're talking about a Vera and a DRP. You need to know what your real retirement number is, but you also need to know what your MRA is. MRA is based on when you're born. So for some of you, it'll be 56 and 8 months, 56 and 10 months. For most of you, it might be 57. Once you reach MRA and have more than 30 years of service, you can retire. And that'll be the case for a lot of you. This doesn't take a Vera. This doesn't take anything special. Okay? 60 and 20 is your next number. 62 and 5 is your final number. So as we're looking at this, make sure you understand what this looks like. Now, our military or active duty, our LEOs, our law enforcement special provisions, they have a different retirement number. That's 50 and 20 or any age in 25, which is also the same numbers you need for a Vera. But we'll cover that here in just a second. Now, we're going to talk about the 3 legs of retirement. TSP, FERS, and Social Security special supplement, okay? Now, as we go through this, understand that I'm trying to dive into this information as quickly as possible. Then convert that information to an easy understand format. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little excited about all this information, so I'll try and pull that back a little bit as we go through today. So when we're talking about retirement, you need to know what your credible service is, okay? So your credible service is temporary time. Were deductions withheld or not withheld? example, my first job with the federal government, FERS was not withheld. Now, when I went full-time with the federal government, that was when it was withheld. But because my temporary assignment was before 1991, I was able to make a deposit for that time. That might not be your case, so you need to understand that. Refunded time. Did you take your FERS money out and not put it back when you came back to the federal government? Because you never expected to be working for the federal government. Happens often. If that was the case, you need to make that redeposit for that time to count. Military time. Do you have active duty military time? Did you make a deposit for that or not? We're going to talk about that in more detail here shortly. Workers' comp time, generally that's included in it. Leave without pay, you can have up to 6 months a calendar year of leave without pay. Part-time counts the same as full-time as it relates to credible service, and your sick leave hours get added to your time as part of your annuity calculation, but doesn't get you out of jail early, okay? This is something in the middle of DRP and Vera options. You need to make sure that you collect all your SF50s now. As soon as we're done with this workshop, log on to your electronic personnel file and download all your SF50s. Keep a digital copy as well as a paper copy, okay? HR is going to be inundated with requests. Understand, before what's happened over the last couple weeks, your HR component was overworked and understaffed. Now with 50 to 150 to as many as 250,000 federal employees taking a Vera or taking a DRP, imagine their workload today. That's not going to be your most efficient use of time trying to get information from them. Some of this you're going to have to do on your own or work with experts like my team. So your SF50s are where you're going to get your original retirement dates. It's going to be where we look at your high three. It's going to be where we get a lot of information. And as you're marching forward, trying to make a decision, you want to make sure you have a copy of all these. Government tends to lose things, right? And these SF50s were hand scanned in years and years ago. And so there's a chance there's missing ones. Or like one gentleman we had a couple years ago, he had 3 years of somebody else's SF50s. Okay, so understand this. Now, if you can get a hold of a certified summary of federal benefits from your HR component, do it. But I'm going to warn you, I don't know how available this will be to you until you're actually filling out retirement paperwork. Your SF50 is your certified summary of federal benefits. It'll be where the federal government comes in and says, yes, this is your FDIC time. This is your IRS time. This is your VA time. This is your DOD time, whatever that is, your military time. All of that will be or should be on your certified summary. Now, if you elect to retire because of the Vera or normal retirement, you're going to get one of these. Don't sign a blank one, okay? That's like signing a blank check. Don't want to do that. But you're going to want to request this at some point. Now, if your HR is as hardworking and they have the staff to do this, you can collect this from them. But again, I think this is going to be harder and harder to do. Now, as it relates to sick leave gets added to your time. Again, it doesn't get you out of jail early, but it does get added to your time to compute your annuity. And you can see this chart here, depending on how many hours of sick leave you have, depends on how many days and months of sick leave you have. And some of you, if you have more than 2,087 hours, you actually have more than a full year of sick leave. This form can be requested, or it'll be in a and it'll be on our book. It is the 2,087 sick leave chart, and you can simply do a Google search for that and download a copy of that. Now, to figure out your annuity, we need your service computation date, we need your credible service, we need your high three pay. Now, I've taken a lot of questions on high three pay over the last couple workshops that we've done. High 3 pay is the 36 consecutive months where you make the most money. Can be May to May, June to June, August to August. Does not have to be January to January. Might be January to January, but it does not have to be. And it is not a calendar year the way you would think of a calendar year, June, and it's just 3 calculations. The average federal employee, this will be anywhere from 3 to 7 calculations, because every time you have a cost of living increase or a pay increase, starts a new high 3. So example, let's say January you had a cost of living increase, and then in May you got a step increase. Well, there would be a calculation from January to May, and then May for the rest of the year, or till your pay changed again. So understand this, okay? Bonuses are not included, overtime is not included, air traffic control premium pay is not included, but uncontrolled overtime for our LEOs and special provisions and locality pay are included. I just had someone tell me, well, someone told me locality pay wasn't included. Just yesterday. No, it absolutely is. So to calculate your annuity, we need your years and months of credible service, including bought back military time, sick leave, and your high 3 pay. Now, those of you that are going to take us up on the opportunity to work with my team during that first meeting, when you meet with my team, we will collect this information before the meeting and we will have your numbers during the meeting. And if for some reason one of my team does not, let me know. Shoot me a message, shoot me an email, because I am requiring them during that first meeting to give you your real retirement number, as well as a quick estimate on your FERS annuity based on when you plan to retire, and to make sure that we've got all of your components working together. That is what you get. That is my guarantee that my team will do that. And if they don't, I need to know about it. We want to make sure that you get all those numbers immediately during that first strategy session with my team. Now, let's start talking about how you actually calculate your annuity. Your FERS annuity is calculated at either a 1% per year worked or a 1.1% year worked. That is determined by, do you retire under traditional regular retirement, which is MRA and 30, 60 and 20, or 62 and 5, or if you are past the age of 62 and have more than 20 years of service. So as we're looking at this Vera option, you may fit into either one of those categories, okay? And you need to know what that looks like. If you are 61 with 20 years of service, you may not want to collect this first option. You may want to go ahead and work till 62. But that's a very personal decision. So our team is going to make sure that we run both numbers for you as we look at that. So let's take a look at what that math computation looks like. If you're retiring MRA and 30, 60 and 20, 62 and 5, or under an early out, it's 1% for each year. So 1% times your high 3 times your years and months of credible service with the sick leave added in there. And then that gives us the dollar amount on an annual basis. We divide that by 12 to get your basic annuity. So here's an example. Let's say you have 30 years of service and your high 3 is 75,000. 75,000 times 1% times 30 years, 22,500 divided by 12 is 1875. Now this is before deductions, and this is just one of your 3-legged retirement stool. So understand, as we go through this, this is just one. We're going to show you how all 3 of them come together, but this is just the first one. Now, let's say you were in a position where you wanted to work longer. Let's say this person was 58 with 30 years of service, and they wanted to work longer than that. Well, if they wanted to work till 62, then their annuity computation would be 1.1% times their high 3 times their number of years of service. So let's change that and say they're 60 in that first example and versus 62 here. They'd work 2 more years, they'll have 2 more years of federal service, and they get 1.1%. Let's just say their pay stayed the same. You and I all know that that won't be the case, right? You're going to have cost of living adjustments. You're going to have step increases most likely. But let's just compare apples to apples. So if you just worked the 2 more years and qualified for the 1.1, your annuity goes to $2,200 from the $1,875. So that's the difference there for just working 2 more years. Now, for some of you, that may be enough incentive to work 2 more years. And for some of you, they couldn't pay you enough to work 2 more years. So understand this. This is a very personal decision as we walk through this. So that's a 35.2% annuity calculation versus a 30% annuity calculation. That's the difference there. Now, I know we're running through a lot of these things fast. I understand this. This is a lot of information. It's like drinking water through a fire hose. We're going to dive into some frequently asked questions. We're going to dive into a lot more other things as we go through today. The goal is to get the information out to you as quickly as we can in as concise a manner as possible, and then allow you to be able to decide, hey, do I want some more help? Do I need Mike and his team to run my numbers and look at that? Okay. Now, I might have mentioned this once or twice, but the chat section is absolutely active as we go through today. You have questions, ask your questions. My team's going to be responding. Obviously, I'm talking to you, so I can't respond, but my team is going to be actively answering all your questions. In that, they'll also be putting in the chat section our evaluation sheet. That evaluation sheet allows you to come in and get started in our process, okay? It'll allow you to say, yes, I want an appointment, meet with me as quickly as possible, please, because I want to know what my numbers are. So make sure to fill out the evaluation sheet as soon as you can, definitely by the end of the workshop. Again, you'll get the copies of the books, and you'll also get a link to this video. As soon as we are done with this video, it is recorded, and we will upload that so you will get an access to be able to come back and watch that. Now, if you have people in your agency that you're like, gosh, this Mike guy sort of knew what he was talking about, talked really fast because he was rushing through stuff, but man, he knew what he was talking about. You can also, we give you permission to send that link to other coworkers if you feel this information's good. And hopefully you do. So, military service. You can buy your military time and add it to your FERS time. Now, with the current Vera and DRP, trying to say Vera DRP at the same time and keep getting tongue-tied doing that. With the current Vera and DRP offer, you need to understand a couple caveats, okay? You have to have made your military deposit before you retire, okay? Understand that if you haven't already made your military deposit, you're going to want to start that process. If you make a military deposit, that time is added to your time. It does not take anything away from your military benefits. Does not take away your VA benefits. Does not take away any of those benefits. Now, if you have a full military pension and you buy all of that time, that is a different story. When you actually retire, you'd be giving up your military pension because it becomes your FERS pension. But besides that, there's no other situation that would happen. So in this example, we've got Louis, who has 5 years active duty time. Louis's military deposit in this example is $3,000. Now, for most people buying back $5,000, $3,000 is not the number. It's typically going to be less than that. But in this example, I just want to show you how good that benefit is. He has 25 years FERS service, and his high 3 salary is that $75,000. We're going to keep using that same number. Now, if Louis makes his FERS deposit, he has his 25 years plus his 5 years military, doesn't lose any VA benefits or anything like that. Now he has 30 years credible service. 30% of 75 is that $1,875 on a monthly basis. But here's the thing. What if Louis didn't make that deposit? What is he giving up? Well, if Louis doesn't make that deposit, he only has 25 years of service. His 5 years didn't get added to his FERS. So he didn't have to make the $3,000, but his annuity is a 25-year annuity, not a 30-year annuity, which is $1,562 a month instead of $1,875. So he's giving up over $300 a month by not making that deposit. So let's take a look at that simple math. If Louis makes his deposit, cost him $3,000, he gets $3,700 a year more for the rest of his life. So $3,000 one time to get $3,700 a year for the rest of his life. Is that a good deal? That's an amazing deal. Math like that really only works in two places: the federal government and Vegas, okay? And Vegas is a crapshoot. This is not. This is guaranteed benefit, okay? So how do you go about this process? Well, you reach out to your HR component. You work through them and their policies and procedures, but the basics of that are you're going to give them your DD-214. You're going to request that they get a calculation to figure out what your purchase price or your buy-in price to add your military time to your FERS is. They will reach out to DFAS. DFAS will come back and say, hey, this is how much they earned. Your HR will figure the math on that. It's 3% for how much you earned while you're working. Plus, generally, there's going to be interest payments on top of that. They say, hey, this is your number, $3,000 like in our example. Now, you can make a check payment for that. You can have it payroll deduction. But if you're taking advantage of the DRP or the Vera, you better write a check and you better get after it, okay? Because you have to have made the deposit before you leave federal service, okay? So, special provisions are law enforcement. You have a slightly different annuity calculation. It's 1.7% for the first 20 years. So in that example, if you had 25 years of service, it's 1.7% for those first 20 years, and then 1% for every year after that, okay? Now, early outs. Now, this is what we're talking about. This is what's been in the news. You have the DRP, which is not an early out, and you have the nationwide, agency-wide Vera that was just announced a few days ago. Two completely different things, okay? Now, these things can work in coordination with each other, but they are two different things, okay? So, what is an early out? The Vera. Let's first talk there. The Vera is a reduction of force, transfer of function, discontinue of service, downsizing or reorganization. The current Vera is downsizing reorganization. Hey, if you don't want to work for the federal government and you want to retire early, then let's make this easy for you. We've offered the Vera, okay? And you have options under this Vera, okay? The DRP is something different. The DRP is Deferred Resignation Program. It says, hey, look at me. I've been working from home for the last 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. I love my lifestyle right now. Don't make me go back into the office, please. I'm just going to take the Vera and retire between now and September or shortly thereafter, okay? So let me tell you sort of what that looks like. So DRP says, hey, I want to resign. It doesn't negate you retiring. It just says, hey, I want to resign. I prefer not to go back into the office. And the DRP doesn't mean you're not going to work. For some of you, it may. But for some of you, you're going to work just as hard, just in the same way you've been doing it, and slowly you'll be training your replacement, maybe. Each agency is going to work differently. Each supervisor above you is going to work differently. So if someone is trying to tell you the DRP is going to work this way, they're lying to you, okay? No one knows. And every agency and every supervisor will be different. What we do know about the DRP is you're going to get paid through September, whether you're required to work or not required to work. but it opts you out of having to go back to the office for the most part, okay? There may be certain times where you're going to be required to go back to the office, but understand this, the idea here is the Trump administration's basically saying, hey guys, we appreciate your service. If you don't want to work for the federal government anymore, great. Let us know. We'll pay you between now and September. You don't have to come in with all these new regulations and come back to the office and do all this stuff. We'll figure it out between now and September on what your work schedule is and how that's going to work. And you're going to help us train the next person or transfer your job to somebody else. Hey, if you were on the fence about retiring or on the fence about leaving federal service, hey, now's your time to get out. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your service, and just let us know. And there may be some of you that do not like the Trump administration and you're like, yes, thank you, let me leave. Whatever category you fit in, understand this is a very personal decision. And my team has been expertly trained on how to walk you through this. Okay? So let's talk about what those options are and how this would work. So if you, let me fast forward just a second. Let me see if I can get to the right page. There we go. And then we're going to go back to the frequently asked questions. So if you currently or will reach between now, September, October, November, December, MRA, and 30 years, you're just going to retire, okay? Or any version of the 16, 20, or 62 and 5. Vera does not affect you, okay? If you currently or will have between now, September, October, November, December, have reached 20 years of service with age 50 or turn age 50 during that time period, the Vera, the early out is for you. Or if you currently have 25 years of service or any age, the Vera offer is there for you, okay? And you can select that offer and be able to retire, okay? So let's go to the frequently asked questions as it relates to the Vera, and it equates a little bit to the DRP, okay? Are you expected to work at your government job during the deferred resignation program? Now, OPM says no. I don't think that's quite 100% truthful, okay? I'll just be honest, because the DRP says in it, you don't have to come in the office, but if you want to work from home, gosh, we'd really appreciate it. So each supervisor position is going to work a little bit differently. I think the requirement to work may not be there, but we want to transfer your position to the next team member, and that may take a little bit of time, okay? So I would tell you not to expect, hey, I accept the DRP, and I sent my email, and I did all that, and on February 7th, I'm done working. For some of you, that may be absolutely the case. You want out day one, okay? I've been working around federal employees, gosh, my entire life. And some of you are so committed to the work and so committed to serving our country that you're not just going to walk away. But you could, okay? Now, am I allowed to get a second job during the DRP? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. You have resigned, delayed resigned, deferred resignation, you've resigned. But hey, if you want to go work in the private sector, God bless you, go for it. And if you want to get paid between now and September and work in the private sector, awesome. Do it, okay? That may be extremely financial beneficial to you and your family. Will you really get your full pay during the entire period, even if you work a second job? Yes, absolutely. The idea here is that, hey, if you don't want to work for this administration or you were on the fence about quitting anyhow because you're so close to retirement, whatever it is, yes, absolutely you can leave and go work in the private sector. It's okay. There's no big deal there. So understand that's the case. Can you extend vacation while you're on this administration leave? Absolutely. Go to the beach, hang out. Obviously, if you're still helping the transition period, you'll need your laptop there on the beach or at the lake or wherever it is, at the grandkids softball game, whatever that looks like. This can affect a lot of you lifestyle-wise, and I think in a positive way for a lot of you. The current funding bill for the federal government expires March 14th. Will I still receive pay and benefits? Listen, just like as a regular federal employee not on DRP, if the government shuts down, there's a chance you may not get paid until a later date. Okay? You guys have worked for the federal government long enough. You sort of have been through this. Unfortunately, Congress is very good at not doing their job. So you've been through this a couple times. Government always makes you whole. Okay? So yes, they would still make you whole. Does my agency have a Vera for employees who opt to take the deferred resignation offer? Yes. If you take the DRP, you can still leave under the Vera as long as you're age 50 with 20 years, any age with 25. Unless you're in one of the positions that exempt from the DRP. Now, if they're exempt from the DRP, again, this is rapidly moving, you may not be exempt from the Vera. Okay? The reason that's the case is it may be harder to replace you during just an 8-month time period. And that's just solely my opinion. Okay? Now, are you eligible for early retirement during the DRP? Obviously before September. Will you be able to accept the DRP and still retire during the deferred program? Yes. Been saying that the whole time. Absolutely. You can accept the DRP between now and September, retire in September or sooner. Okay? Now, this one's sort of cool. I am scheduled to retire soon after September 30th. Can I take advantage of the DRP? This is a good one. If your retirement date is between October and December of 2025, you are still eligible for the DRP, again, unless you're in an exempt position, if your retirement date is within this window. Your DRP resignation will extend to match your retirement date. Dude, isn't that awesome? Now, this may be a way to cheat the system. Now, just hear me out here. Now, I'm just talking, okay? Again, your personal situation is different, but I'm just talking. Let's say you want to retire in November. That was your planned retirement date. Or maybe it wasn't your planned retirement date, but it is now. You can take the DRP, file your retirement paperwork with a retirement date of the last day of November, and get DRP in October and November, and then retire. Now, I know it says through December. Now, I'm just going to tell you my personal opinion. If this is your scenario, I would not go until December. Your HR component is overworked and understaffed now. Don't be the last one out. Sneak out a little bit early. The other thing with this is my personal expectation is there are going to be somewhere between 150 to as much as 300,000 federal employees that are going to take DRP or Vera over the next 8 to 10 months. On a normal January, OPM's backlog, how far back they are, runs between 40 and 60,000 retirement applications. What happens when they have 5 to 10 times that, 5 to 7 times that, whatever that number ends up being? Don't be the last one out the door. Okay? Think about this. If you went to the Super Bowl here coming up, you went to the Super Bowl, and at the end of the Super Bowl, your team won, you stayed for the celebration, you stayed to take pictures, and you stayed for all the confetti falling down, and you left the stadium as one of the last people. Imagine the traffic jam. I remember when I watched the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Bengals a couple years ago. And we walked out of there, and it was a playoff game, wasn't the Super Bowl. And we walked out of there, and just the sheer number of people waiting for buses and waiting for this and waiting for that, and trying to get an Uber, that's almost near impossible. All of that was crazy. You don't want to be the last one out. This is not like the Super Bowl where you need to watch it to the very end. So if you were in this scenario where you could retire or leave under the Vera and your planned retirement date is November, that's what I would do. I wouldn't take it to December. That's just my personal opinion, helping federal employees retire for the last 27 years. Okay. How can I make it clear that I would like to resign and not retire? Not just resign, and retire, not just resign. You're welcome to type resign and retire into the email that you're required, but it's not required. If you simply write resign, you're eligible to retire before December 31st, we will process your resignation with retirement as of September or your actual retirement date, November. Remember November, last day in November, okay? Why am I being offered deferred resignation? Well, I think we've covered this, but the federal workforce is expected to undergo significant changes in the near term. Job changes, function changes. There are going to be whole agencies that probably disappear. Whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter, it's happening. So make sure if you wish to depart from the federal government, you're doing it on your terms. That you have significant time and economic security to have this. This is right off of OPM's website, a nice vacation. Who is eligible for DRP? Deferred resignation is available to all full-time federal employees except military personnel of the armed forces, U.S. Postal Service, those positions related to immigration enforcement, national security, TSA, you're not on here, okay? Customs Border Protection Patrol, you're not on here, okay? Secret Service, you're not on here. U.S. Marshals, you're not on here. Air Traffic Controllers, you're not on here. And those other positions that are specifically excluded. Don't know what those are yet, okay? What do I do if I did not receive a deferred resignation email? You visit the OPM website where you can review the email, find instructions to submit that, okay? And then you submit it. What happens if you don't respond to an email or accept the deferred resignation? Nothing. You don't have to resign. Federal government's not saying get out. It's saying if you want out, leave. Thank you for your service. This is not a get out, you're fired. This is, do you want to be here? Yes or no? And if you don't respond, then they assume yes. That makes sense, right? So, what if I decide after February 6th, I would like to accept the deferred resignation? Hey, understand this, it may not be acceptable. Now they're going to look at certain exceptions. They're going to look at certain employees. Maybe they'll do this, maybe not. If you had an approved absence during that time, you may have an option to come back. Listen, if you want to leave between now and September or retire between now and December, remember I'm suggesting November, whatever that scenario is, if that's you, then I'd simply put my hand up and say yes. If you know that you know that you know that that's you, And if you don't know that you know, but you think maybe possibly, make sure you fill out the evaluation sheet and schedule time with our team. What happens if you accept the deferred resignation offer and then later change your mind? Hey, you have the right to rescind that resignation at any time. But understand this, they're going to look at it and they may not approve that. Okay? So when you look at this, that gives you some, if you're not sure, you may be in a weird window. What happens if I was approved leave during some or all of the 28th to February 6th? Employee agencies may grant you a reasonable extension. Okay? Am I permitted to accelerate my resignation earlier? Absolutely. I don't know why you would, really. I mean, if you're out on the deferred resignation plan, you're getting paid through September, and maybe you don't have to work. Maybe you do have to work. Maybe that's why you decide to retire or leave, terminate sooner. But absolutely, you don't have to work or stay or wait till you could leave early. Am I permitted to extend my final resignation date? In terms of the deferred resignation, you cannot. Now, there's that small, narrow window for retirement that'll extend it. But also, depending on what your job is, your agency may say, hey, listen, we know you decided you wanted to go in September. Excuse me. But could you really do us a favor and work till January? That may be the case. Don't know. We're not sure what that looks like. How will you know your resignation letter has been received and accepted? You receive an email confirming with any additional information and next steps. But understand this, given the volume of federal employees sending in this letter, it may take a few days, okay? Make sure you keep a copy of the email you sent for your records, okay? Is there a formal agreement I can sign with my agency reflecting the terms? Yes. If you're eligible for the DRP, your resignation is accepted. Your agency will execute paperwork reflecting all the terms. Haven't seen those terms. I venture to guess the terms are you may or may not have to work. You don't have to come into the office. Some of that stuff's already been laid out. Can I return to work for the federal government? Deferred resignation does not affect your ability to go to work for the federal government. Okay? You may switch agencies. Maybe your agency's disappearing and you're like, yep, deferred resignation. Yep, let me go to work for Customs Border Protection. I don't know what that looks like. Does deferred resignation currently comply with the records and privacy laws? Yes. Your deferred resignation doesn't have your social security number when you send that email, so that's all good in there, okay? Shouldn't be blocked by servers or anything like that. At least it shouldn't be, okay? Now that's a lot of information. Understand this. When you fill out your evaluation sheet, you're going to get a copy of our Planning a Secure Federal Retirement, which is going to have some additional information. We'll include this information. We're going to include the information on DRP. We've got the Vera information already in there. All of these things are already in there. So you're going to get that as an ebook that download immediately. You're going to get our TSP Millionaire Secrets, which if you're going to accept any of these, you really don't have time to become a TSP millionaire if you're not already very close, okay? You're also going to get a hard copy of our Planning a Secure Retirement and a link to this video where you can pull it up, fast forward, rewind, fast forward, go back and forth and get the information that you specifically felt like, hey, I need to watch this again, okay? But you got to fill out the evaluation form so that my team knows to send you those things. So this is the Vera option. 50 and 20, any age and 25. Now, if you wanted to leave under your own early out, that's MRA and 10. And this may be the case for some of you. Maybe you're MRA under the age of 62 and only have 15 years of service. So you don't match the Vera, but you still want to leave. You can leave under MRA and 10. Now, if you leave and immediately start your annuity, you get to keep the health insurance and life insurance. However, if you postpone your annuity, your health insurance and life insurance you don't get to keep. You hit pause, and you get to bring those back in when you reach the correct, is it 60 and 20 or 62 and 5, whatever full retirement situation you'd be in. Then you could pick up the health insurance at that point. Now, if you decide, hey, I need the health insurance, I'm not going to go get a job in the private sector, and let's say you're age 58 with 19 years of service and you want to leave. Well, remember, if you're close to hitting the 20-year, you need to revisit that. But if you were leaving under that scenario, that's more than 10 years, less than 30, less than 20, you can leave, start your annuity immediately, keep your health insurance, keep your life insurance, but you will have a 5% per year under the age of 62, and it's a calculation that's weird. It's a solid year. So there's a little bit of grace there. But that's a forever deduction. So let's say you were 58 with 19 years of service. You wanted to leave, didn't want to work the extra year to get to age 60, whatever that is. Then that would be a 20% reduction for the rest of your life. Okay? So just know that that's the case. Okay, so FERS Special Supplement. Now, when we talk about FERS Special Supplement as it relates to normal retirement and Vera, very, very important to understand this. MRA and 30, you qualify for the FERS Special Supplement. 60 and 20, you qualify for it. Leo's under 62 or under an early out like the Vera we're talking about. Your MRA is when the special supplement starts. Does that make sense? So let's give you an example. The FERS Special Supplement was designed to bridge the gap between when you can retire, MRA in 30, 60, and 20, till when you can start Social Security at 62. Now, when there's a Vera, an early out offer like exists today, this FERS Special Supplement does not start till age MRA, your MRA, individual MRA. Then it starts, okay? So let's take a look at how you do that math. So let's, in this example, your FERS, you're retired at age 60, 30 years of service, and your age social at 62, your age estimated Social Security is $1,500 is the example here. Now, I know as we go through this is a lot of numbers, right? You got this number, got this number, got this number. That's why you want to work with someone from our team so we can walk you through this process. So the math is simple. You take your 30 years of service, divide it by 40. The 40 is a constant. Then this example, that gives you 75%. But let's say you only had 20 years, that'd be 50%. Then you need to know your estimated age 62 Social Security. In this example, we're saying that's $1,500. So 1,500 times 0.75 or 75% is 1125. That is your FERS Special Supplement, okay? Now remember, that's just the second leg of your retirement stool. So before we go any further, let's put those retirement stool legs together so you can at least see what that looks like. And then we'll dive deeper into it as we keep going. So if you remember, we were talking about getting to your real retirement number. You're guaranteed, this is my real retirement number. And that is your take home now. So in that example, we said 1,500 every 2 weeks. So 15 times 26 divided by 12 is the 3,250. So that's your real retirement number. So that's the number we're trying to get back to. So let's use an example for education purposes only, okay? Let's say that was your scenario. We figured your FERS annuity at the 1875. That's your 30 years of service, 75 high salary. We just figured your FERS Special Supplement, your Special Retirement Supplement, your SRS. And in this example, let's say you had $400,000 in your TSP and you're going to withdraw it at 4%. Now we're just using this as an example. That would give you $4,300 before deductions. Before survivor benefit, before FEGLI, before FEHB, before taxes. By the time you take all those things out, about $1,000, $1,100, you would be at that $3,250. Okay? Now, I know everybody's situation's a little bit different. Some of you have more FEGLI than others. Some of you have family on your FEHB. So understand this. Everybody's scenario is slightly different. But this is the function of my number, how to get to my number, and how the three legs of that retirement tool work together. Does that make sense? Okay. When you've reached that point, you have some options, don't you? You can say, hey, do I want to continue to work? Do I want to work with the Trump administration? Do I enjoy my job? Do I want to keep working? Or do I want to retire and take advantage of this Vera, this early out, and the retirement date and the DRP and gosh, go out with a slightly long runway? I believe you do. I believe that if you can get to your take-home now number, then you have the freedom to continue to work or leave federal service, retire, whatever that looks like. Retire, go get a second job, absolutely. And I've been training my team for years to take the time and effort to help you get to those numbers, understand those numbers, and then be able to articulate those numbers to you in an easy to understand form. We call it the yellow sheet. So when you meet with my team, they're going to take out a yellow pad, whether that's online or in person. They're going to take out a yellow pad and they're going to write take home now, and they're going to do the math for your take home now. They're going to figure your FERS under the Vera, under your retirement, under whatever scenario you're looking to retire. They're going to take your FERS number and they're going to figure it, minus FEHB, minus FEGLI. They're going to go through that whole process. They're going to take your Social Security, figure out your FERS supplement if you qualify for it. They're going to take your TSP and give you an estimate of what that looks like. And they're going to do that during the first meeting. It is my requirement and my promise to you that they'll do that. The reason being is we expect thousands upon thousands of federal employees to reach out to our office and our team across the nation because it's your personal retirement. And your HR component is not going to give you a FERS estimate over the next 6 days, 7 days, however much time period you have left in the DRP or the Vera. And how long is the Vera going to be offered? I don't know. Is it going to be all year? Is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be 90 days? I don't know. Whatever it is, whatever they extend it to, you immediately need those numbers, not tomorrow, but today. So make sure you fill out your evaluation sheet, let our team know so we can get to work on it. Now, cost of living. Cost of living for FERS employees, we call it Diet Cola. Because CRS get full cola, US FERS get Diet Cola, okay? And it's simply reduced based on the numbers you see here. It's close to the full cola, it's just slightly reduced. Now here are some considerations as it relates to when to retire, okay? A FERS annuitant, you should always retire at the end of the month. If you retire at the end of the month, your annuity begins the very next day. So you retire at the end of the month, your annuity starts on the 1st. So if you're planning to take the full DRP and retire in November, you retire at the end of November, your annuity will start December 1st. Now, understand this, you're not going to get a check December 1st. Your first check is actually going to be your last paycheck. Then sometime in that example, if you retired November, sometime January 15th thereabout, you'll get your first retirement annuity check. Now that retirement annuity check is going to be what we call an in-term annuity. It is going to be the government's best guesstimate estimate of what your annuity will eventually be. It's going to be short. Doing this for the last 27 years, I've only had twice where it wasn't short. With the thousands of federal employees we've talked to, only twice. One was $10 more. One was about $115 more. But everybody else has always been short. And the reason it's short is because the government never wants you to owe them money. They always want to owe you money. So that's the reason for it. Now that shortness, that shortfall in that interim annuity can be 60% of what you're expecting or 80% of what you're expecting or even more. I don't want to scare you, but I just want to give you some keen advice here. The worst we've ever seen it was someone who's expecting $3,600 a month and got $600 a month. That was a VA nurse in Amarillo, Texas. Her retirement after deductions was expected to be $3,600. Her first check was $600. The next 9 months, for a total of 10 months, she received that $600. Now that's a big difference from $3,600. Luckily, she was working with us and our team, and we were able to help her, show her how she could bridge that gap with her own finances. And we held her hand and walked her through that process. We will do that for every one of you also. There's no rhyme or reason to it. The longest we've seen this interim annuity last is 14 months. The longest I've heard of is 24 months, but I didn't actually witness that. So as part of what you want to do in this critical gap is work with a fiduciary, a financial planner, a team of federal people that understand the benefits and will hold your hand and walk you through it so that this transition is as easy and wonderful as it could be for you. So understand this. Our goal is to help you through that process. And we're honored to do it. We're honored to take those of you that have served in the federal government and love you through this retirement process. Now, under FERS, regular retirement, whatever it is, there are benefits that are paid out to your survivors. Now, one of these you get just for working for the federal government, so you get these benefits automatically. But when you go to retire, some of these benefits are electable benefits, okay? And that's your survivor annuities. As long as you have at least 10 years of service, your spouse is going to get an annuity. That is 50% of your annuity. If you have special needs child or children under the age of 18 to 22, full-time students, or again, special needs, deemed special needs before 18, you get a benefit to them that you don't have to elect. Working or retired, doesn't matter. That's about $655 a month, up to about $2,000 a month, depending on the number of kids for your family, okay? This is a benefit you don't elect. It's one that you get, period. Retired or working. Now, obviously, when your kid gets married and is no longer 18, they lose that benefit. But when you're retiring, if you're accepting a Vera, or you're accepting the DRP and Vera combination, or you're just retiring, you're going to need to make some elections as it relates to your survivor benefit. And most of you should probably elect a survivor benefit for your spouse, but you don't have to. You can say, hey, honey, I'm out of here. I'm retiring. You're not going to get a benefit. But understand this, your spouse has to sign off on that, okay? In front of a notary, you can't just, have a couple glasses of wine and get them to sign off on it, okay? You can choose a survivor annuity for your spouse or ex-spouse with a court order or former spouse and current spouse or insurable interest. We typically don't see the insurable interest. And these are the documents you're going to fill out. You're going to mark this. And my team will walk you through this process. We'll help you fill out these forms. Your HR, again, is going to be inundated and overwhelmed. So you're going to want to get somebody that's going to walk you through this. So we'll help you fill out the forms. We'll help you do that. If you elect the 50% survivor annuity for your spouse, it's at a cost of 10%. If you elect the 25% benefit, it's a cost of 5%. Again, you don't have to do it. But understand this, if you don't elect any survivor benefit and you predecease your spouse and your spouse needs the health insurance, they're going to actually go shopping for health insurance because you have to have some form of survivor benefit for your spouse to keep the health insurance when you were to pass away before them, okay? So here's simply an example. It's 10%. Now, understand this, 10% is always 10%. You're going to have cost of living adjustments as you continue to collect your FERS annuity over 10, 20, 30 years or more. So this 10% is always going to be 10% of that number. So for most of you, your FERS annuity is going to double before you die. If you live 30 years, your FERS annuity is going to double. So will the cost of the FERS supplement. So you just need to keep that, or not the survivor benefit. You just have to keep that in mind. Here's the example of doing the 25%. So we've talked about the 3 legs of your retirement. We've talked about FERS. We've talked about your FERS special supplement. We're going to cover Social Security here in just a bit, but we're also needing to talk about TSP. And when we're looking at the current scenario of regular retirement or Vera, the TSP has a lot more functions that we need to understand. Now, as it relates to TSP and this whole workshop, please understand this very simply. I'm doing my best to educate you in a fast-moving environment. This workshop is solely for informational purposes, for educational purposes, and all the examples are for that. They're not your exact example, okay? So please consult with a financial professional that understands your personal situation, and we'd be honored if it was us. We also suggest you work with someone that understands the federal system in and out and is a fiduciary, which means they're legally obligated to do what's in your best interest. Now, I want you to remember that one more than the others, because right now we have heard and seen many people that are saying they're financial advisors and they're just trying to get money and trying to make a sale and trying to do that. And they're not looking at your whole retirement picture. Okay? So you want to make sure that you're working with someone that understands your full retirement picture, is a fiduciary, understands the federal system in and out. And if they don't know how to spell FERS, they don't understand the federal system. If they don't know what a Vera is, they don't understand the federal system. And if they're telling you to do stuff that you're uncomfortable with, reach out to our team. We'll give you a second opinion. Okay. So we're going to talk about deferrals. You understand you've got deferrals currently in TSP. You're going to continue to deferrals under the Vera or the DRP. You're going to continue deferrals. That's all going to be the same. Nothing changes. Okay. If you exceed your limit, you go and you're over the age of 50, you're going to get the catch-up contribution. None of that changes. Okay. Never put less than 5% in TSP. Now, as it relates to TSP investments, we're going to cover this slightly, but we're not going to dive deep into it, because if you're trying to be a TSP millionaire and you're accepting a Vera DRP and you're not close to being a TSP millionaire, then you're going to want to work a little bit longer maybe if you're trying to get to $1 million. But remember, to get your retirement number, you probably don't need $1 million. For most federal employees, you won't. So let's just give you slight education of what TSP looks like, and then we'll go through. So G is the government fund. It's government bonds. It only exists inside TSP. I call it the zombie apocalypse fund. Not going to lose money there. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States of America. F fund is typically bonds. It's a bond index. It has lost money. Okay, so it's not like the G fund. C fund is the S&P 500, the 500 largest companies in the United States. S fund is the next 2,500, give or take. It's small companies getting bigger. I fund is international. Now, as we look at each of these, understand there's some risk in there, right? So you can see here, there's risk. Some of these have lost money. Now, if we look at these and we look at them over the last 5, 10, 15 years, I want you to see something, okay? When we look at the G and F fund, since inception, the G funds averaged 4.65% with no risk. The F fund has averaged that a little bit higher than that, about 0.5%, a little over 0.5% higher, but it has risk. If you look at its 5-year return, you've actually lost money. It's the lost 5 years. If you look at the 3-year return, you've actually lost 2% a year. Now, the reason for that is interest rates went up. As interest rates go up, that affects the F fund negatively. So if we look at the F fund over the next 12 to 24 months, there's a good chance, definitely not anywhere in shape or form guaranteed, but there's a good chance the F fund will do better than the G fund. But there is no guarantee there at all. The G fund is your zombie apocalypse fund. Okay. Now, if we look at the CS and I fund, so S&P 500, about 2,000, 2,500 small companies. International fund, it's not emerging markets, it's international. And we look at the since inception of the last 10 years, you'll notice the C and S fund are the clear winners. And the international fund, is the clear loser. Now, again, this is just for educational purposes, and I'm just telling you my opinion. If it's me, I have no money in the I fund. If it's my TSP, I do not invest in the I fund because it is proven to be the loser compared to the C and S fund, which are in the same risk category, give or take, for the last year, the last 5 years, the last 15 years, the last 20 years. Okay, the last 25 years almost. Okay. So even if you look at the year to date in 2024, and this was as of December 31st, you look at that and it's dramatically less. Okay. So if we're looking at funds that have risk, that's the C and S. If we're looking for safe funds, it's the G. So if it's TSP, if I'm investing my personal TSP, it's one of those three options. Okay. So CS and I, you can see that again. Again, if you look at every year comparing the C and the S to the I, the C and S have beat the I every year. Okay. Now there's the life cycle funds. I don't like the life cycle funds for the same reason I don't like the I fund. All of these life cycle funds will have a large chunk in I fund, anywhere up to 15 to 28% in I fund. Well, I just told you I don't like the I fund, and I told you why. It sort of sucks, for lack of a better financial term. So I don't like the life cycle funds for those same reasons. Okay. Now, we all understand the up market, the bull market. We've been sort of running in this bull market for a little while now. And it feels great when you look at your TSP or your IRA, your 401k, your stock accounts. When it's going up, it's fantastic. But all bull markets come to an end. And when that bear bites you, you feel it. Now, as you're planning for retirement, you start getting in a different kind of market. And this is a market I've seen federal employees and private sector employees reach out to it and be in as they get closer and closer to retirement. And it's called the chicken market. Yep. Now I haven't even defended or defined the chicken market, and you're going, yeah, that sounds about right. Coming up to the election, we had people that liked Trump, that liked Harris, that liked whatever that looks like. You might have been afraid of, well, if this person gets in or that person gets in. So you pulled all your money and stuck it in G fund for just in case. Well, market went up a lot last year. So you missed out. So if you had your money in G fund, now you have the fear of missing out. You're watching the market go up and you're like, oh, and you're trying to jump back in. Well, you need to have a plan. Not something that's based on emotion, but something that's based on where you're at. JP Morgan does this study every couple years, and it's the annualized return of all asset classes and what they did for 20 years. You can see here the average investor, whether it's real estate or stocks and bonds or a combination of that, whatever it is, the average investor did less than all the things they could invest in. Well, why is that? Well, it's your money. When it's your money, you make emotional decisions. You jump into the market when you shouldn't. You jump out of the market when you shouldn't. You jump back in when you shouldn't. Versus having a plan and you stick to your plan. So one of the things that we'll have you do when you fill out your evaluation sheet is also do your color of money risk analysis. Okay, your color of money risk analysis is 11 easy to understand, easy multiple choice questions. There's no wrong answer. So when you fill out your evaluation sheet, you'll also want to do this. And the reason you're going to want to do this is it also gives you access to our generational vault. If you're going to be working with us, you need a generational vault because that's going to be one way that you're going to upload these sensitive documents to a safe, secure site. That's our generational vault. That's 2048-bit encryption, okay? So you're going to do our color of money risk analysis, no cost to you, and then it'll give you the option to have access to that and open up the generational vault. Now, your color of money risk analysis number will give us an understanding of how risk adverse you are or risk go, go, go you are. It's going to take into account your current goals, your life stage, your current situation, your investment experience. Planned income. Do you have a FERS pension? Are you going to qualify for that? What does that look like? And then your attitudes and values about money. And we do that in financial psychological questions, and there's only 11 of them. So it's very easy. As it relates to TSP mutual fund window, just understand this, you can do it. It's a fantastic benefit, but the average federal employee has no idea how to do this. Our team will walk you through it, okay? Simply know you can set up this, you can invest in this, and you have some options to invest in it, okay? There are 4,600 mutual fund options. It's not something you should do by yourself, and nor do we recommend it. You need to get professional advice, and my team would be happy to walk you through that, okay? Now, this next one is key as it relates to Vera and as it relates to retiring under the DRP or even just leaving service, okay? Now, the TSP, you can roll over outside of the federal system. And a lot of times it makes sense to do that in the form of an IRA for traditional TSP or a Roth IRA for Roth TSP, okay? You can do that and you can roll that money over. Now, in retirement, what are your withdrawal options? Well, if you're working past the age of 59 and a half, you can do an in-service age-based withdrawal. Now, if that check comes to you, you're going to pay taxes. So you need to visit with your tax professional before you do things like that. You can leave the money in TSP. I don't see very many federal employees do this anymore. You can do a partial withdrawal, some of it, leave some of it in it. If you're leaving under a Vera, this is most likely your scenario that you should do. You should move some out of TSP, but you also need to keep some in TSP. You have the option to do monthly payments, mixed withdrawals. You can change payments. You can add to payments. There's a lot of flexibility, except it's all you. And I suggest working with a fiduciary to help walk you through that process. Now, you can do the TSP annuity. I don't advise it. That's just my personal opinion. This is an annuity based on 1985, 1987 technology, and financial technology has changed greatly since then. Okay, what about taxes? Well, this is where you're going to need an expert and a financial plan because taxes are going to be a big thing if you're accepting a Vera or the DRP as it relates to your TSP. Withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income, obviously from traditional TSP, and TSP is going to mandatory withhold 20%. Now, you may owe more taxes than that. They're just going to withhold 20%. Now, you may owe less taxes than that, but they're still going to withhold 20%. Now, withdrawals made before age 55 are subject to a 10% tax penalty. Not normal tax. This is in addition to the normal tax. So if you're in the 22% tax bracket and you pull money out of TSP before the age of 55, you'll pay 22% tax plus a 10% tax penalty. That's 32% tax, not including your state income tax. And if you're in California, that could be as high as 14%. So you'd be losing almost 50% of your TSP if you do that. So that's why you need to work with a professional. Now, you can do life expectancy payments. You can do things called a 72T. There are different things that you can do to avoid that penalty. So you need to work with a financial professional like my team to walk you through that, okay? There's no penalty if you are turning 55 this year and accept the DRP or the Vera or retire and you're under 59 and a half. If you're over 55, there is no tax penalty, okay? You have normal income tax on top of that. So let's talk about Social Security. Now, I'm not going to go greatly into Social Security. I'm going to give you some of the basics, but I'm not going to go greatly in there because here's the thing. For free, at no cost to you, our team will run what's called a Social Security maximization report. which will give you every which way you can take Social Security and you and your partner or spouse can take Social Security. And it will figure out the optimized way for you personally, you and your family, to take Social Security to get the most out of it. But that just gives you the number. Then you have to figure out, does that match to your financial plan? And that's where my team will help you. But again, there's no cost to do that. So as we're going forward, understand that your full retirement age is based on when you were born. And the examples in this educational workshop that we're using, we're going to use age 66 as the example. Okay? So obviously, depending on when you were born, depends on when your FRA, your full retirement age is. We're going to use 66 as the example here. So if I were to ask you, when can you get your first check? You all know 62. Unless you're a widow, that's 60. And when are you going to get your most monthly check? That's age 70. But do you get the most money over your lifetime at age 70 is really the question you should be asking. Most people think of it in terms of 62, full retirement age, and 70, but you really can start Social Security at any time after 62. So it depends on, are you working? Are you not working? Do you need that income? Do you not need that income? Are you going to live a long time? You're going to live a short time? Who knows if you're going to live a long time or a short time, right? So to figure the math, if you enjoy math, it's about 20,000 calculations, but you have to figure out how many months you're going to live times the payment you're going to get your lifetime benefit. Because every month you delay payment, your check gets bigger, but you also don't get a check. So you need to understand this. Now, if you really enjoy the math, it'll take you almost 70 days and nights working to do the math. That's where our Social Security maximization report comes in. It will run and figure out the best way for you to take Social Security, and then you can make an intelligent, informed, educated decision on when it matches best for you and your family. In 2023, the maximum Social Security was about $3,600. That's about $3,800 today. Yet the average recipient only got about $1,600 to $1,700. Well, why is that? Well, because some people take it too early. Some people didn't know you could take different ways. Now, there is an earnings test. Now, this earning test is for the special supplement between now and 62 and Social Security. That earnings test basically says if you make about $22,000, $23,000 earned income, not from TSP, not from FERS annuity, earned income, job, work, earned income, then for every $2 over that number, you give back $1. And that also works for your FERS supplement. Okay? Now, the year you're turning your full retirement age, that number is about $5,450 or $56,000. Okay? Now, when my dad turned 62, I ran that Social Security maximization report for him. And when he turned 62, we ran that report and we sat down at his kitchen table and I went over the report. And the report simply said, gosh, based on the average male at age 62, if my dad waited till age 70 to start taking his checks, he would get the most money over his life expectancy, which at that time I think was 82, 83. And my dad said, okay, well, that's what I'll do. I said, well, Dad, actually, that's not what I'm going to suggest I do. Now, my dad, this is going to age me a little bit, but my dad taught me to program on a Commodore 64, how to program DOS on a Commodore 64. And he always used to say, garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put in that program, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's garbage, right? And so that's what he said. He said, son, did you put garbage information in here? I said, no, Dad. I said, this is just so we know what the numbers are. But this doesn't know your personal financial situation. It doesn't know, Dad, that you were never a big saver. Now, we never wanted for anything when growing up. My dad was in the military and got wonderful experiences, went to a Korean preschool, lived in Okinawa, Japan, where I could go to the beach 30 minutes in any direction. That's how I learned to snorkel with my dad. Great memories in Germany. Because we lived in Germany, we could take an art trip to the Paris and the Louvre, and we could do spring break in Spain. So I had a wonderful life, have a wonderful life even today. So I never wanted for anything as a kid. So don't get me wrong, but my dad wasn't a big saver. because he had positions or he served our country or served the state of Texas in such a way that he got a pension. So my dad collects a military pension, a VA benefit because of his injuries during his military service. And he went to work for Texas Tech University, where he also got a TRS retirement from them. But he wasn't a big saver. And I said, so Dad, at age 62, this $1,800, $1,900 a month extra added to your budget is huge. It means you can travel a little bit more. It means you can travel to the 401st Bomber Group as the historian and do that as volunteer work. And you can travel to the Philippines to visit Nita's family. And so I'm going to suggest we take it now. And he said, okay. So my dad took his Social Security. And he drove whatever car he wanted to drive. And it wasn't anything fancy. He drove a Ford Escape. He just traded it in about every 5 years. Lived in the house that he lived in and got to travel and do all these things. And the grandkids knew they were getting a $100 bill from Pop every Christmas until he passed away at the age of 69. In that scenario, when I ran those numbers for my dad, what I didn't tell him, because he's my dad and I honor him, what I didn't tell him is, Dad, you're a stubborn old man. You're an insulin-dependent diabetic who likes sweets. You don't really take care of yourself. And Dad, if I'm being truly honest, I don't know that you'll make it to 82 for this larger number to make sense. And unfortunately, I was right. And he did pass away of stubborn man disease. He came to the house that Friday night to watch the kids so my wife and Sarah could go out and have a nice evening. When I came home, I noticed he had a cough. This was before COVID, so that wasn't a worry. He just had a cough. And then when I talked to him on Saturday, I noticed the cough was still there, and I asked him about it. He said, took some NyQuil, I'm good. Stubborn old man. So Sunday, he promised me and Nita, my stepmom, that he'd go to the doctor right after breakfast with the boys at McDonald's Monday morning. And his doctor's office is literally across the parking lot from the McDonald's that he has breakfast with the boys at. Stubborn old man didn't go. Because he had to go to Home Depot, and then they didn't have what he needed at Home Depot, so he went to Lowe's. And by the time he got done with all his honeydews at the house and everything else, he ended up at the doctor's office about 2 o'clock. And I got a call from the doctor's office about 2:30 that my dad had basically died in the waiting room in just the 30 minutes he was there, and that they were rushing him to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital and walked in that room, I knew my dad wasn't there. Now, I don't know what you believe about afterlife or Jesus and God, or what you believe your God is, but I knew my dad was not there. He wasn't. Now, his body was there, and the machine said his body was working because the machines were making his body work with breathing for him and doing all his stuff. But I knew my dad wasn't there. And over the next 3 days, the family said goodbye to Pop. And we let him go. I know that my dad taking Social Security at 62 was the right thing. But that's hindsight. 2020 is always, hindsight's always 2020, right? But so understand this. Our team will run a Social Security maximization report and help you with the financial plan to see when's the best time for you, your spouse, you, based on widow benefits, whatever your scenario is, when is the best way for you and your family to take Social Security? And we do that at no cost to you. We'll do that for you, okay? As a FAIR employee, you have some great life insurance and you have some okay life insurance. Your great life insurance is your basic benefit. This is your salary rounded up to the nearest 1,000 plus 2,000. It's a great benefit When you retire or leave federal service, you have the option to keep it at full benefit, do a 50% reduction or a 75% reduction. The 75% reduction will eventually become free when you turn 65, but it will reduce starting at age 65 to that 25% benefit or the 75% reduction. Your option A is your basic benefit. It's your flat $10,000. Don't see very many federal employees still have this. Your 5 times your salary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times your salary is the one we see most federal employees let go at some point, either during your career or in retirement, because it continues to get more expensive. Every 5 years, working or retired, it goes up. And as you get older, it starts doubling. Between 60 and 64, it almost doubles. 65 and 90, it doubles. But most people don't keep it past 60, is typically what we see. Now, with this current Vera and DRP, health insurance is a big deal, okay? You have to be enrolled 5 years immediately preceding your retirement. Now, this is a big question for a lot of federal employees looking at the DRP or looking at the Vera. Are you there for 5 years? Now, it doesn't mean you're on the same plan for 5 years, Blue Cross Blue Shield for all 5 or Aetna, just means you're in the federal system for 5 years. If you're a spouse and you don't have the insurance because you have the insurance under your spouse who's also a federal employee, you're good on the 5 years. If you've had TRICARE counts as your 5 years. So this is going to be a question that most of you are going to ask my team. Do I get to keep the health insurance? Because that's a big deal, okay? You have to be receiving an immediate annuity to keep the health insurance or to have the health insurance in retirement. Your spouse may continue on the health insurance. Your kids may continue on the health insurance, just the exact same as if you were working, same rules, same everything. Here's the most powerful part. The federal government still continues to pay its share of the premiums. That is an awesome and amazing benefit, okay? Now, dental and vision's the same, working as retired, nothing changes there. Medicare, we're not going to cover Medicare in depth today. Understand if you're going to qualify for Medicare, we're going to walk you through that process. A lot of people are going to do FEHB and Medicare when they reach 65. We'll walk you through that. It just typically makes sense for the average federal employee to have Medicare A and B and FEHB. But we'll run through those plans with you and we'll help you make those decisions, okay? The reason we typically see people do a FEHB, in this case I'm using Blue Cross Blue Shield, but Aetna, GEHA, they all have a very similar situation where if you have Medicare A and B and your FEHB, you pay the same premiums, but you don't have any copays or deductibles, which can be huge. So most federal employees take A and B and keep their FEHB, okay? But you don't have to. And you're going to do that all through the BenFeds website. All that's the same. We're not going to talk about open seasons and those sorts of things because we've got a lot of changes coming, or the long-term care or the life events. Life events may affect you if you need some of these other benefits, but those are rare occasions. Now, in closing, understand this. All this information is right as of today. But a lot of this information was opinions on what we think is going to happen. Some of this is directly from all the websites. But understand this, it's fast moving. The DRP was offered just a few days ago. The Vera was offered just a few days after that. This is hard-hitting, quick information. So give us some grace if we're not 100% correct. But reach out to us with those questions, and we'll find the answers. Not only will we find the answers, we'll give the answer to you and where we got it, okay? So whether it's getting the information directly from OPM, getting it from Social Security, getting it from IRS, getting it from TSP, this workshop, a lot of this information, even word for word, was pulled right from there, okay? If you're not a member of NARFE, you might think about joining them. They're a great organization. Now, why work with a financial advisor under this high-stress DRP Vera offer? Because this is what we do. This is like our Super Bowl, our go to get it done. My team has been training last 27 plus years to help you retire. We are ready to take on thousands of federal employees and walk them through the retirement process. We'll help set your financial goals to see if you can retire. Help educate you emotionally about, okay, if I leave because I want to leave federal service, but I still have to work, what does that look like? Our team will walk you through that and hold your hand through that process and educate you on all the different options. We're going to help you develop your DRP Vera plan. And I believe we're going to do it better than anybody. We've written 3 books on the subject. I've trained thousands, 10,000s of federal employees on these benefits from across the country. We're ready to dive in and go to work for you. We're going to help you monitor and adjust a plan as things happen. This Vera and DRP are happening fast. You want to have somebody you can call up and say, hey, I just read this new information. How does that affect me personally? Now, I know you like Billy Bob and Joe and Sarah, but I want to know how it affects me. That's what my team's going to do for you. Understand where you're getting advice. Is it an insurance agent that's trying to make a commission that works for the insurance company, not you? Is it a stockbroker that makes a commission or gets paid on a transaction and they work for their firm, not you? Or is it a registered investment representative that works for a firm that's independent, that's legally obligated to do what's in your best interest because they're a fiduciary? I think that is where you should be getting your information. Now, I'm a little biased. We also do insurance. For some of you, insurance might make sense. But when we're acting as a fiduciary, we always act as a fiduciary. Okay? Retirement planning. Don't stop the retirement process now. We're going to keep doing these workshops and we're going to keep updating them because it's going to change dramatically. Now, remember what I said at the beginning of the workshop. Retire to something, not just from work. So let me explain what this is going to look like. Many of you, I've seen it already, you've already filled out the evaluation sheet. We have hundreds of evaluation sheets already. Many of you have already filled out the evaluation sheet. You're already asking for help. Fantastic. This is what my team's going to do on next steps. You're going to fill out the evaluation sheet. We're going to remind you to take the color of money risk analysis. Again, that's the simple 11-question little questionnaire, all online, because that's going to open up and give you access to open up the generational vault, which is our secure 2048-bit encryption system where you can upload your documents. We're going to require for you to have an appointment with our team to have those documents for obvious reasons. Just having an appointment with you where you ask 1,500 questions and we can't answer most of them because we don't know. Can you retire? Can you accept the Vera? How does DRP look? How does your FERS annuity work? What's your Social Security? We can't answer those questions unless we have the answers. So we're going to require that you upload those for you to actually have a comprehensive, full retirement meeting strategy session with my team. We've got to. And we're going to have to require that. Now, if you don't upload those things before your appointment, the team's going to get on there. They're going to visit with you very briefly. They're going to take 10 to 15 minutes, and then they're going to be done. And then they're going to wait for those documents to get uploaded so they can run all your numbers, so they have them for you to make informed intelligence decisions. And we're going to give you all of that information. We're going to give you your FERS estimate. We're going to give you Social Security maximization report. We're going to put together your retirement plan, and it's yours. So don't delay. Just like I said, don't be the last one to leave the stadium. Don't be the last one to send us a request for an appointment. We're prepared to take thousands of appointments, but we also need you to do your part. In closing, I want to say thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for those that are going to continue to serve. And we're honored to be able to walk you through this process. It's what we get to do. If you haven't noticed through this workshop that I'm passionate about this, then gosh, I must be doing something wrong. So thank you. Look forward to visiting with each and every one of you soon. Most of the time you're going to be visiting with my team members. I'm going to be looking at stuff. I'm going to be hopping on. I'll poke my head in and visit. I'm excited about where things are going. Have an amazing day and look forward to visiting with you. Goodbye.